When I am making a decision, like for example, with work, then I'm taking a look at it through that lens. And notice work is not one of my core values. Is it important? Yes. Do I need it in order to survive? Yes, and provide for my family. But I'm taking a look at, am I going to take on this project or extra work? How does this impact my kids, my family time, my mental health? And so I really have pretty clear boundaries. When I check email, when I check my phone, I will tell people no often, and they know that about me. And I don't have as much of the guilt or a difficulty saying no, because I'm very clear, like, this is not my priority in terms of what I need, or it's not going to be adding to my life. So it really is a process of just being more intentional.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. This episode, I am so thrilled to be interviewing Kristen Odegaard. She is a life coach, and we're going to be talking about something that I actually do with all of my clients that I don't think I've ever mentioned before outright in an episode here. So I thought it'd be really fun to have Kristen come here and chat with you about core values and why it's so important to know what yours are and to basically live based on your core values and the benefits of doing that, as well as how it can help you reduce people-pleasing behavior, which I know a lot of you, myself included, are overcoming that. And, the whole like good girl thing, like be a good girl and how we were raised in society and all that, and how our parents were, and really navigating what life is like, not being a good girl, but being good to ourselves. And so I'm very excited to have you here, Kristen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Can you share with us where you're from, how old your kids are, and how you first thought to become a life coach?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. And I am based out of a small town in western Wisconsin. And so I am a life coach. I have been doing some version of coaching for 5 or 6 years at this point. So I'm an educator, have a fitness background, human resources, all sorts of things, just kind of wound together. And I actually discovered life coaching back in like 2016, and several life transitions. I was going through divorce. My husband at the time was having an affair, and my kids and I were kind of all over the place. So I was working with a therapist, but I was still looking for more guidance and support, like for figuring out how to get off of autopilot, feel more fulfilled. And I started working with a coach. So with this being such a transformational experience, that I started working first with other people going through affair recovery and relationship coaching. And I did that for a couple of years, and just more on a volunteer basis. But I really wanted to work with women on a more proactive basis before their life blew up. So that's when I pivoted a few years ago. I became certified through the Life Coach School and have since done a couple of other certifications, and I really work on mindset coaching. So my goal as I was working with women was really to find more calm and ease, maybe joy in their lives without guilt and overthinking or wanting and requiring other people to change. And so that really became about people, women especially, have these people-pleasing behaviors. And so we work on ways to detox from that people-pleasing, quiet the mean girl, like inner critical voice, and to feel calmer and more confident without just having to try harder, because most of us have done that for a significant period of our life and it's not working. So it's mindset changing to really kind of take a look at your life as a whole. What beliefs and values do you have? And so many of those are subconscious that you didn't really adopt consciously. And so part of my process then is to work with women to really identify, what is it that you want? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? What are your priorities and values? To really be intentional with that. And then it's how do we then readjust your life to fit in with those, instead of the other way around, where you're just kind of acting and hoping that somehow those other things will fit in.
Yeah, I love that. And, like, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about all the different ways that we aren't asked or honored as an individual growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our parents kind of just like, well, this is just our family values, if they even took the time to think of what those were.
Yeah.
Most of the time, a lot of families are just kind of passing down what they were taught, and making their own improvements, because every generation does theoretically get better.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're at this point where I feel like people are waking up more and they're like, wait a minute, I have no idea what I want, what I like, what I'm striving for. Like, maybe I have a goal to, like, I don't know, be able to lift certain number of pounds to be stronger. Or maybe I have a goal to, I don't know. Like, they're just like very surface level goals that have nothing to do with our own inner fulfillment or satisfaction with our lives. And our idea of success is so, again, surface level, materialistic. Now, not to say that those aren't worthy of your time, but when it comes to our own happiness, a lot of people have literally no idea what it takes.
Yes. And that's so common when I start talking with women, usually just in the consultation phase, or even talking with my friends or acquaintances. And it's like, well, what do you want? And, well, I want to be a good mom, or I want a good marriage, and those are fine, lovely goals. But what do you want? Like, how do you want people to talk about you? Not that it's important about what other people think about you so much, but like, how do you want to show up? How do you want to be seen? Like, how do you want to be seen? Not let other people control that narrative. And there's very little good in my case that came out of my divorce. But that was one piece that is that I really had to start being intentional, because when your life blows up, then it's a matter of, okay, the future that I thought I had is completely gone. And so what do I want? And I was paralyzed for quite a while. I mean, there's grief and there's all sorts of other things that go through with that. But then it's like, we forget how to dream too, because, as we're growing up, everything is so forward thinking that I have two teenagers right now. One is going to be a senior in high school. He's getting ready for college. Like, everything is forward thinking of what he wants to do with his life, where he wants to go to school, the job he wants. And that's fantastic. But then kind of you get to a point in our lives as adults that maybe we stop striving for that. And I think especially with women, because we get caught up in life. We're the caretakers and of so many things, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it's very role based.
But it becomes, like, I'm this wife, I'm this mom, I'm this, maybe I have a job, but it's very a lot of times just so focused on other people or managing the day to day that I use the term of going on autopilot, and
Oh,
that, so we're just going through the motions of, taking care of who needs this and when is school starting and what do you need and what's for dinner, and I need to remember the family members' birthdays, and on and on and on. And the self-care that we talk about is often very surface level, but how do I feel calm? How do I feel joy? What do I want more of in my life in terms of other feelings and emotions? And if we're constantly relying on other people to provide that puts us at a disadvantage, because we're relying on those other people. But that's often, again, how we were brought up, just in terms of other people, the external validation and acceptance and love, and that is important. But the part about how we can be responsible for it on our own and how we can pursue it on our own is often not something that's talked about at all.
yeah. And it's very disempowering to
Mm-hmm.
think all your life that your happiness is based on some other external factor instead of
Yes.
something that you can do and control and nurture,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of like leads into why knowing your core values is so important. So,
Yeah.
for those who are new to this idea of core values, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you keep saying this?
Yeah.
What the hell is a core value,
Sure.
even?
Mm-hmm.
Can you share with them what a core value is and why it's like, I mean, I feel like it's critical for
Yes.
people to know, but we are not taught to even think that way
Mm-hmm.
from school, from home, unless your parents already knew this stuff
Right.
to be able to have that introspection about
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Right. And so core values, a value or a belief is something that it's just a very, a thought that you hold very tightly. And in terms of a value, I like to think of it as what is something that is going to drive you and help you to make decisions. So that in terms of how you spend your time, your energy, your money, what what is this most important thing in your life? A lot of people have heard of the analogy of like the big rocks, if you would,
Mm-hmm.
in a jar. So you have big rocks that go in first, and you can only fit so many of them. But then you could put in lots of little smaller rocks and even sprinkle sand in there to fill it all up. And I think most people understand with that, but they aren't necessarily intentional with what those big rocks are, and they focus so much more on the little rocks and the sand and all of the minutia. And so with my coaching, it's taking a look, and there's a couple different ways that I can do this. One is I just have a list of like 50 values, and it might be things like I pulled it up here, so I'll just read a few. Adventure, flexibility, knowledge, safety, love, being loved, self-esteem, caring, your sexuality, God's will, health, responsibility, inner peace. And so it just goes on with all of these. And I have people start with 50, and we work, get down to 10 or 12, and then we keep narrowing it down until we can get to 3 or 4. And inevitably, people will kind of group things however they want, that is individually. And so for me, like I will say my 3 are or 4 are family, health, and inner peace. Integrity for me is another one that is kind of my 4, but that brings me inner peace too. So those two kind of go together. So when I am making a decision, like for example with work, then I'm taking a look at it through that lens. And notice work is not one of my core values. Is it important? Yes. Do I need it in order to survive? Yes. And provide for my family. But I'm taking a look at, am I going to, take on this project or extra work? How does this impact my kids, my family time, my mental health in terms of this? And so I really have pretty clear boundaries, in terms of when I check email, when I check my phone. If I will tell people no often, and they know that about me, or setting my own boundaries in my coaching practice, because I'm like, no, this doesn't work for me. And I don't have as much of the guilt or a difficulty saying no, because I'm very clear, like, this is not my priority. In terms of what I need, or it's not going to be adding to my life. And so that was a process, though, in terms of me really being clear on what my values are. And then it's a skill set to be able to weave that into my day-to-day life and set up a life around those things, rather than trying to fit those into life as it happens to me. So it really is a process of just being more intentional. Sometimes with people with values, just depending on their background, we talk about it more as maybe more of a vision board kind of thing if they have a hard time. And so even doing a visual representation, but then we take a look at, like, what is it about that, relationship that's so important to you? What is it that you're looking? How is it that you are trying to feel from there? So that's another way for people maybe who are more visual based, or like to use their creativity in different ways, that we can find their values in that method as well.
Yeah, I mean, there really is no other way to simplify your life. That's why I said it was critical.
Yeah.
Because once you identify what your core values are, it really is just a matter of, okay, I'm faced with this decision. Does this align with my values, or does it not? Does this get me closer to my vision of my life, which is basically your core values wrapped up in, like, what you see for yourself? Does it get me closer? Yes or no?
Right.
And then it becomes very simple. It's not so much, oh, but what if I hurt this person's feelings? Or what if, I don't know, what if they don't like that? Or it's less about that and more about, am I being true to myself? So knowing your core values helps you be more authentic.
Yes.
And the great thing is, I know that a lot of people who are newly recovering from being a people pleaser will struggle with this, because they're like, well, what if people don't like this?
Yes.
Right? What if people don't like this new version of me? How do you support people that are in this stage? Because I know, I know it's hard.
It is really difficult. And I'll start by saying, people pleasing, for the most part, women were raised to be people pleasers for the most part.
1000%.
There certainly are exceptions, but we were often, whether it was a cultural, society's expectations, patriarchy, whatever you want to label it, there is often that we are the nurturers, and also that there is also this kind of societal view that we are responsible for other people's emotions. And
which is like a load of garbage.
It is. Yes. I mean, I grew up like, oh, say you're sorry you made her sad. And so this whole made somebody sad, mad, whatever, again, it just became part of our system and our beliefs. So we take on this responsibility for other people's emotions, which is absolutely garbage. So, I mean, we have to have that conversation as well.
It triggers me when I hear my parents say that to my kids. And I'm like, oh my, do not do that to my kids.
That our own thoughts and feelings and experiences generate our emotions. I cannot hand you an emotion.
No, my kids do not make you feel shit. Okay? Like, don't put that on them.
So, right. So the first part, again, is to have that conversation. And people have to kind of adopt that, because if you're not willing to believe that you aren't responsible for somebody else's feelings, it's really hard to shed some of these people pleasing behaviors. So that is often the first step. Like, I'm responsible for my own feelings, which is completely a full-time job. Like, I do not have the ability to manage other people's.
Especially as a mom.
Right. And so when you start taking, first step always is to kind of take ownership of your own. Then from there, we start talking about allowing other people to have their own experiences. And this doesn't mean that you are intentionally rude or mean or trying to disappoint people. So this goes back to, how do you want to show up in the world? And when you are clear on that and comfortable, so that you can respond in integrity and honesty, so it's a lot of managing our own emotions. It really isn't about other people. It's managing our own. And then, can I allow the other person to have their own experience? And that can be uncomfortable to watch somebody, especially if you care about them, to watch someone be disappointed or to be sad, and allow them to have that. And it's not your responsibility to fix that. And so it really is a skill set, like anything else, that takes practice. And I find often with my clients and from my own journey, that so much of that was just being able to sit with my own discomfort as I'm growing through that. Like, yes, this is sadness, and this is disappointment, and it's okay, because it's a human emotion. I don't have to fix it for somebody else. And so being there. Now, other people, as you change and are no longer trying to manipulate situations, because people pleasing really is manipulation. You are trying to act or say things in a certain way to get a person to respond in a certain way. Maybe it's just to be happy, or to give them what they want, to like you, to be accepted, any of those kinds of things. But so when you stop that or decrease those behaviors, the other person has been trained that this is how you are. And so you're showing up differently. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. I liked it a whole lot better when you were, just trying to cater to what you thought I wanted. So of course there's going to be kind of a shift. And so again, it's uncomfortable as we are, basically shedding layers of things that don't work for us anymore, managing our own expectations. And then with that other person, it kind of depends on the relationship that you have with them. Is this an important relationship for you to foster? Because then it's probably going to involve some other conversation at a separate time about, hey, I'm working really hard, on myself and showing up. And it's really important for me that I'm living this way, and it's going to look different for you. And I just want you to know that, I see that and I hear that. Our relationship is important. I hope that we can talk about this. And, so whether that's with a parent, a partner, somebody else, that, the relationship dynamics are changing. And so it does involve some communication skills to be able to navigate those new dynamics. And there are going to be some people who just
don't like it.
They don't like it. And then you choose how you want to respond. Maybe that person has less time or priority in your life, and while it's sad in some cases, it may also be freeing, because you are realizing how much time and energy that you put into something that really wasn't serving you. And, it was you giving and giving and giving and giving, but not really getting anything back. And so it may signal that a relationship shifts, or again, takes lesser priority. But what you gain back, that's what we are focusing on. And then where do you want to put that time and energy and attention?
Yeah, and the other benefit to you showing up authentically for yourself and really living based on your values, which is you living with integrity and you being true to yourself and really
Hmm.
loving yourself, is that the relationships that stick around are the ones that you should have had in the first place, and the
Right.
ones that kind of wither away are the ones that weren't aligned.
Hmm.
And so you can really see based on who sticks around and celebrates, and whether it's quietly or loudly,
Yes.
your newfound voice.
Hmm.
They're the ones that truly care about you as an individual rather
Hmm.
than what you can do for them.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. The one where I see my clients struggling the most is generally with their parents. And
Mhm.
because some of that is just a generational difference, it's a self-awareness difference. Many of our parents' generation, depending on what age you are, I mean, emotions literally had no place in their life. They weren't brought up with that. I mean, we are not very far removed from generations that were brought up in war and
Or, yep.
extreme poverty, or just looks very, very different from our current situation for many of us. And so it was survival. It wasn't about what felt good. And so parents can kind of go different ways. Some of them, kind of veered off one way and just were maybe more selfish. But a lot of times they're not going to change. And so their emotional level is what it is. And you might be surpassing that, maybe by a
Mhm.
lot. So I often say, like on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe you're at a 7 or 8 and wanting to continue to grow in your emotional intelligence. And your parents might be stuck at a 5, and
Or
that's
lower.
or lower, and that's all they're ever going to be. And that can be really challenging,
Mhm.
again, because as parents they tend to still see us as children even as adults. But depending on how you want that relationship to play out, then you navigate it. And I just have to kind of remind myself, like, um, my this is my dad. This is where he's at, and these are the kind of conversations that we can have, and that's where we've got it.
Yep.
And you will notice that with other people in your life as you continue to grow, whatever version of personal growth that you're on, there are going to be people that aren't on that same pathway and don't want to grow. And so again, handling that discomfort of changing relationship dynamics and how to be okay with it and not needing to manage everything about it that you really don't have any control over either, because that's the thing with people pleasing. Like, we're bending over backwards trying to create this acceptance, validation, whatever, but they have their own thoughts that are generating their own feelings that we really don't have any control over, and it's such an energy drain to pursue this when we don't really control it. So again, you just want to show up in the best version that you can be, and hoping that the other person is doing that and that you guys can connect that way.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I just keep hearing stay in your own lane, stay in your own lane,
Yeah.
stay in your own lane. Like, just tend to your own garden,
Hmm.
okay? Because what good is it if your garden is full of weeds and you're out there trying to like maintain other people's? It's like, no, they're not out there doing that for you. It's not like you guys are deciding to
Hmm.
switch. Like,
Yeah.
you still have yours. And we have so much to navigate through because we
Hmm.
did grow up with the, oh, don't cry, it's okay, you're fine,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
a lot of stifling of emotions because, like you
Yes.
said, emotions were uncomfortable. It was a luxury to tend to
Hmm.
emotions in their time of growing up, right? For
Hmm.
me, it wasn't so much war that they experienced, it was immigrating here.
Hmm.
And, you know, coming from somewhere familiar, home,
Hmm.
to a completely different area where they don't speak the language and people don't like them,
Hmm.
like they're being told to go home and whatever.
Hmm.
And so it was purely survival, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, yeah, I get why you are the way you are. And
Hmm.
I think what helps is just trusting that everyone is doing their best with what they've got.
Hmm.
And a beautiful thing is, even though you may be outgrowing them, right? When it
Hmm.
comes to parents or whoever else you're
Hmm.
thinking of, you can still have them in your life, just like
Yeah.
Kristen said. You just have to have parameters of what's an okay thing to talk about,
Hmm.
having your own boundaries. Okay, I will engage in these conversations and I will not engage in these
Hmm.
conversations, and just knowing what is going to help you maintain that inner peace. And when it's time to say, okay, well, I gotta go run an errand now, I gotta
Yeah.
go, or I gotta, hop off the phone, however you interact with them.
Hmm.
And that all goes back to your core values.
Hmm.
What is going to be in most alignment with you? Because, yeah, while it would be amazing to still have a really awesome relationship with your parents or whoever, sometimes people are in your life for a season and for a reason.
That's right. Yes. And that's hard too. Again, if that wasn't uh, something that you were, if that idea is newer to you,
Mhm.
and again, it all of the different ways that we were brought up, whether that is, religion or society. And so with relationships, marriage is a big one where, in terms of, there were definitely generations where it was just, more of a business partnership
Mhm.
and
What
survival
looks good
for
on paper. Yep.
many women who didn't have any other choices, and you just endured it. And I can say that too. My mom was a first generation American, and so very different when I was able to see that, the kind of grittiness, and as well as there was much more emphasis on things about fitting in and what people would think, from her, whether that
Yeah.
was, from the immigration standpoint or not. But so it's interesting now, where I've been able to kind of deconstruct some of this as an adult and say, this was handed down to me. Does it make sense that I want to hang on to this anymore? Because it wasn't ever consciously adopted, it was just there. And so shedding, those elements of it. But then, yeah, so once you find those core values and very intentionally for you, then to kind of construct, where do I want to be? How do I want to interact with people? And taking steps. It's not a light switch, right? I mean, it's a process that
It's an
you
ongoing
have an
process.
ongoing
I
process
feel
that
like I
doesn't,
still find
uh,
things where I'm like,
yeah.
wait, why am I doing this?
Well, and situations that will happen are going to challenge you to, think differently. So for me, my mom died 6 years ago. My dad remarried, and I had. I hadn't ever thought about, having my dad remarry in his 70s. And she has a whole life and family and different experiences, and me in my 40s, like, I don't, a stepmom doesn't even
Yeah.
seem to apply, right? So,
No.
but so that was a whole set of thinking that had never dawned on me until it actually happened. Definitely has changed the dynamics with, my family then as well. And so there are things that are just going to happen in your life, and you're like, whoa, okay, so I have some really interesting thoughts about holiday traditions or family, or what it means to blend a family. And those pieces in that context that I had never really thought about. So it is always a journey because life is happening. the
All the
great
time.
the great thing is that, I feel like I am much more in I'm responsive to it in terms of reacting to it, because I think for many years I felt like life was just happening to me and I was just on this wheel and I'm going along with it, doing the best I could. But now, are there times that still happens? Yes. But overall, that I'm more responsible for my experience. And sometimes, when it's not a good experience, that sucks because, like, yeah, I'm responsible for that too. But the empowering factor for me of that I'm not relying on somebody else to bring certain emotions to me or for certain life circumstances, and then I think it's fantastic that I've worked really hard to try and instill some of this to my kids too, so that we're changing the way that they're bringing up. And, that's letting my kids have their own emotional experience. And I have other parents that are like, not on the same page as me with that. And that if my kid rolls my eyes at me, I'm like, no, that's not disrespectful to me. That's about them being frustrated with the experience. I don't take it personally. And I was recently out with a friend and she was like, whoa. And I'm like, what? They're frustrated. It's not about me. Like, and so again, really different experiences, but you are deciding what it means and how you want to show up. For me, I'm like, I'm letting my kids figure out what is emotional, what it is for them. Now, if they're going to go do that to somebody else, they might have some different consequences versus it happening to me. They need to figure that out. And
Yeah.
so, again, that's the important part for me that I'm going through that not everybody agrees with. And I have to be able to be like, that's okay. I don't need your agreement with that. You raise your kids, I'll raise mine. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. I want more moms, more parents in general to do what's right for them. Like, so long as you're not hurting anyone intentionally, like, you get to give yourself permission to do what's right for your family.
mhm,
And it does start with first knowing yourself and
yep,
what you, if you're married, you and your partner are
mhm,
working towards, because you
mhm,
have your own core values, and then there are the shared values that you have that
yes,
you want to, raise your kids with. And
mhm,
so keeping that in mind is also going to simplify parenting, because
yes,
anytime something new comes up, and you guys are all moms, something's going to come up, especially in the
yes,
teenage years. Okay. So just
yep,
fair warning, just boundaries being pushed and tested
mhm,
all of the time, new things, especially because we didn't grow up with this much technology,
yes,
right? Like back then it was like, oh, cool, a PC and a
yeah,
laptop,
mhm,
like, oh, on a flip phone and eventually a smartphone. But now it's like they have the whole world at the disposal of just in their pocket, in their hands.
yep. And they always have.
And they
They don't know
always
any
have.
different.
Yeah, exactly. That's just their life. And with knowing, okay, what kind of human do we want to raise you to be,
Mhm,
is so helpful to help you navigate through those situations where
mhm,
you're being asked, hey, can I get TikTok? Can I have a smartphone? Can I
mhm,
go, hang out at this place and do this and do that?
mhm,
Well, when you have this foundational anchor that you establish with your partner, with yourself, it's just like, let's check back to that. How does
mhm,
this align with our family
mhm,
values?
yeah,
Does this get us closer or farther away from it?
mhm,
And so, like, truly, if you have not done this yet, if you have not identified your core values or even established family values,
mhm,
I would say start there.
mhm. Yes. And there's so many different resources. If you just do like type in, how do I find my values? There's going to be, 50 different things that are going to come up from you. And most of them will give you a starting point to, at least get going. But yeah, I mean, whatever analogy you want to use with it, be your anchor, your North Star,
Yeah.
whatever that is, pillars or the foundation for your house. It is so critical and so foundational to really have, creating the life that you want, and getting off of the train of this is just happening to me and I'm reacting to everything. It helps so much. And I will say, even with the parenting, example, and part of that is just, figuring out what's important to me. And then again, keeping that, showing up that way truly so that your kids can see that, because sometimes it's like, well, yeah, this is important, but it's not reflected in your day to day. And then you wonder why the kids are pushing the boundaries and you're like, no, this is really important. But they don't see that. They can't read your mind. So when you are really living out those values, having conversations, why is this important? I encourage my clients, if they are married or with a partner, to definitely have conversations. Do this for yourself, but it can be a great exercise. Like, what does it mean to you to be in integrity? Is how important is this to you? Because your core values may not completely align with your partners, and that's okay. And if you know that, then for you each to be able to have your own free time and what's important and how can we work on this together. And so there can be some fantastic conversations to happen, to really get to know each other and build that intimacy, the emotional intimacy, back into your relationship again too.
Absolutely, because you can't really develop a deep intimacy with your partner if you don't even have that with yourself.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I mean, I knew once I heard what you did, I was like, okay, yeah, we have to talk about core values because it's not something I've touched on, but it is such a huge driver to your life to, again, put you back in the driver's seat. Because it's no fun living life feeling like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen next. I guess I'll just have to roll with the punches and hopefully I come out on top. It's like, no, you can be the driver of the car that is your life.
Yeah.
You get to make decisions that are better suited for you. And that starts with knowing your values.
Right. Yeah. And I would say if you are feeling resentful about aspects of your life, there is a really good chance that you need to check in with your values, because what's happening is they're not in alignment, and the resentment comes from, I want to be that way, but I'm not. So that is a really great indicator to give this a shot.
Totally agree. So how can listeners connect with you if they really love what you've shared and want to work with you?
Yeah. So I also have a weekly podcast called Stop Overthinking. And so that has been going for about a year and a half. So there's lots of episodes. You can find me on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. And then you can find me on social media, Coach with Kristen, or Kristen Odegaard Coaching. If you pop it in there, my website, everything is linked kind of wherever you end up. But it's coachwithkristen.com to find me on the website and wherever else. So I love to hear from people, and you can follow me. Facebook and Instagram are the two that I'm most commonly at, and then podcast is a great way too as well.
Amazing. And since you're listening to this, you're a podcast person, so go check out her show. Go poke around and see what different episodes she has. I'm sure she has so many things that can help you with where you're at in life. And reach out to her. Let her know what you most resonate with. And thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. I hope that you got a lot out of listening to this. And if you have not identified your core values, I invite you to go Google search it and figure out what they are, or give Kristen a call so that she can help you identify them. But before I let you go, Kristen, I love to ask my guests a question so that listeners can get to know you better.
Sure.
You ready?
Yes.
What is a food that you can eat every day and never get sick of?
Oh, unfortunately, ice cream.
Unfortunately. Why is it unfortunate?
Because it is not the most healthful and nutritionally balanced. But yes, I love ice cream. I eat it year round, and that is usually my treat for myself. And if somebody offers if a good ice cream shop any place, and if I'm visiting somewhere, I'm usually there checking it out.
I love it. What's your favorite flavor?
Um, Probably, I like vanilla base more than a
Okay.
chocolate base.
Yep.
So some of the traditional and cookie dough is always a great favorite. Anything with other candy and stuff thrown into
Yeah.
it is pretty good for me too. So,
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being part of the show.
yeah.
If you have loved this episode, please let us know. Reach out to me, reach out to Kristen, let us know what you enjoyed most about this episode. And if you know someone that could benefit from listening to this, please share it with them. And of course, to support the show, please leave a rating and a review on iTunes. I would so appreciate that. I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye, everyone. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.